there seems to be a kind of conspiracy against human sexuality, especially in this hypersexualized generation. There is a conspiracy against human sexuality. What do I mean? Now, when we look at evolving cultures, generations upon generations, human beings are not been that comfortable with sexuality. In the early days, cultures have this suppression mentality. They are not comfortable with, number one, the discussion of around sex. Number two, the expression, free expression of our sexuality. Our culture has not been comfortable with it. And that is one of the reasons behind female genital mutilation. Does it make sense? You circumcise a male, there's a reason for that. But that female genital mutilation, what's the rationale behind it? The clitoris, the trim of the clitoris. And the clitoris doesn't have two functions than pleasure. So it's like culture feel, our cultures, our ancient fathers, they just feel that pleasure is bad. And they want to make sure they kill and they suppress pleasure. And that is why they have killed a lot of young girls, innocent girls, and they have introduced a lot of trauma into their lives. Is that not a conspiracy? And generation upon generation, they felt this is uncalled for. And it's a kind of advocacy. We must get freedom. We must be able to talk about sex. We must be able to express our sexuality freely. And that was why in the wake of 21st century, the sexual freedom. So the culture moved from suppression to freedom. And this freedom also became excessive. If it feels good, go ahead and do it. Free sex, free expression, and we know where that has brought us today. Until we got to this hypersexualized generation. Unwanted pregnancy, broken homes, a lot of issues had come with freedom of expression, sexual freedom, sexual liberation. It's not helping us. And another thing is that why this becomes a conspiracy is that nature collaborated with culture. You see, sex is one of the things or something that plays a major role in the survival of the human race. Food is number one. Sex is part of it. Without sex, the human race could have gone into extinction. And along with this survivor is the reward system. When you eat good food, dopamine is released in moderate quantity just to push you to look for that food anytime you are hungry. So when you have sex, there is a reward system. Dopamine is released into your system just to push you to go for it. So with this culture and this nature, it seems there's a conspiracy. So what do we do? Culture is giving us freedom. Nature is rewarding sexual behavior. So what's the solution? So how do we solve this conspiracy? Should we just give up and feel that since culture is giving us freedom and since nature is also rewarding sexual activities, why don't we let loose? So we don't have any control than to just flow with our desires. But we know the problems and the issues we have had with freedom of expression. Unwanted pregnancy, a lot of lives that have been traumatized, a lot of families that have been broken, a lot of issues, even in our religious settings. It always pains my heart when I hear this man of God, this religious leader, this political leader, or somebody of high timber and caliber in the society. You begin to hear they have messed up, they have done this, they are sexual. It's like nobody has that control over his or her sexuality. But I like to tell you, there is a new framework, and that is what I stand for. I struggled for the first 40 years of my life until I got this remedy. And this remedy is sexual intelligence. No single weapon, no single method, no singular approach can solve human sexual problems. It's not possible. Check history, check cultures, check scriptures, check several religions. You see that people have messed up our sexuality. And what is sexual intelligence? Simply put, sexual intelligence is your ability to understand your sexual thoughts, your sexual feelings, and to be able to manage your sexual thoughts, your sexual feelings, and that of others. That's sexual intelligence. But deeper than that, practically speaking, sexual intelligence is an integration of 5 components. Number 1 is psychological mastery. A lot of us don't understand what is going on in our lives. The struggles we go through, we cannot define the struggles we go through. Sexual intelligence gives you the vocabulary to talk about the untalkables, to define what you are going through, to be able to filter your feelings, to be able to evaluate what you're going through, your feelings, your desires, the difference between your feelings, your desires, your urges, and lust. So sexual intelligence gives you that mastery, that psychological mastery. You are not just tossed to and fro. You know what is going on even within you. And number 2 is emotional regulation. You see, most of the struggles we have with our sexuality, they are emotional. Some of the triggers, some of us were wounded. Somebody like me, before the age of 10, I was introduced or initiated into sex. My childhood, my innocence was stolen. And many of us were just looking for a way to cope. We are looking for a kind of coping mechanism. So some people that are addicted to sex, they're not really addicted to sex. They are addicted to what sex is trying to cover up. So sex now becomes like a bandage that we used to cover a big wound. You only cover, but you cannot heal. So somebody whose childhood was stolen, so he wants to look for a way of proving that I'm also acceptable. I'm looking for validation. So we begin to hop from one relationship to the other. So when they're emotionally abused and traumatized, they are looking, some people are looking for relationships to heal their wounds. Like the woman in the Bible that Jesus met at the well of Sychar. The first man, the second man, the third man, the fourth man, the fifth man. Jesus told her, even the 5th person is not even your husband. So she was like using relationship to cover up, and it was not working until she met Jesus. And Jesus had to define her life for her and her sexuality. If you are lonely, if you are betrayed, and if you are wounded emotionally, then sex will become a problem for you. Every wound that is not healed becomes patterns. And every pain that is not processed becomes a personality. Every wound that is not healed becomes a pattern, a negative pattern for that matter. And every pain that is not processed becomes a personality. That's the second aspect of sexual intelligence. Then the third aspect is brain rewiring. I was mentioning somewhere like 3 weeks ago, and I was talking to young boys and girls, and I told them before you enter into sexual activities, you have to understand what goes on in your brain. You have to understand what goes on in your brain. The moment you are caught up, you are caught up in unhealthy sexual behaviors, your brain is rewired. You have altered this default setting of your brain. So it becomes a problem. It becomes a circle, it becomes a loop. And then you just keep following that circle. You do it, you feel bad. When the trigger hits, then you go into your outlet, maybe pornography, maybe masturbation, or whatsoever, then becomes a trap. You are trapped in that loop, and except somebody comes around to help you, you continue in that circle. And that is what sexual intelligence teaches. And then another aspect is behavioral transition. You see, one method, one weapon cannot solve our sexual problems. You have responsibility. You have to place a boundary around yourself. So sexual temptation is one of the battles that you don't fight in the battle. You fight before the battle. These are the kinds of people I don't want to move with. These are the kinds of social media programs I don't want to be engaged with. You place a boundary around your life. That's your responsibility. So you have to understand that your brain setting has been tampered with. So you have to replace certain habits with empowering habits. There's some destructive habits you've been trapped in. Then intentionally, you have to replace those habits with good ones, empowering ones. And then the fifth aspect is spiritual alignment. Sex has a spiritual dimension. Sex has a spiritual dimension. So you need your purpose, your identity should be aligned with your sexuality. Your sexuality has a timing. Your sexuality has a context. Your sexuality has a purpose. So you have to be able to align your purpose with your values and your values with your behaviors, and everything have to be aligned together before you can overcome sexual temptations. So to solve this problem of conspiracy against human sexuality, I tell you, the only solution is not prayer. The only solution is not fasting. The only solution is not anointing. The only solution is not just being born again. But the solution is a combination or integration of psychological mastery, emotional regulation, brain rewiring, behavioral transformation, and spiritual alignment. That's what solves our problem. And that is what I stand for. So I stand for healing. Let's give chance to people who are hurt, who are traumatized, and let's give them a soft landing, and let's balance our sexual purity messages with healing platform for people who are wounded sexually. So with this, we can overcome the conspiracy against the human sexuality. I hope this video had blessed you. Thank you. I see you at another time.